It's great to see you both. Thank you for being here. I want to introduce you both to this tremendous audience. I will start with Rishan Patel. Rishan is a junior at Junipero Serra High School in California and is the founder and CEO of Alley Oop Kids, a youth sports equity nonprofit. By providing under-resourced schools and youth organizations with free sports equipment, a space to store it, and ongoing support, Alley Oop Kids is on a mission to increase sports equity for youth around the world, one lending locker at a time. Rishan Patel. Josie Portell is a junior at Parkway South High School in St. Louis, Missouri. She was born with a physical disability, spina bifida, and has been playing adaptive sports for her whole life. She has decided to help others, and of course, we saw on the video the conversation about the opportunities that are there for girls versus boys in wheelchair basketball, and you have started a wheelchair basketball camp for girls. And it's Josie Portell. Thanks again, both of you, for being here. It's great to have you. You are the future leaders that I think all of us are thrilled are there and give us great hope for the future. I'd love for both of you, if you wouldn't mind, and maybe Josie, if you want to start first, by talking about your program and the impetus behind it and why you decided to start the program.
Yeah, so my project...
Oh, we've got a mic issue. There you go.
Yeah, so my project is a wheelchair basketball camp for disabled young girl wheelchair basketball players. Sorry, I'm a little nervous, but I had a bunch of caffeine before this, so we'll see how it goes. Yeah, so the reasoning behind it is my own experiences with wheelchair basketball. As Christine said, I was born with a physical disability called spina bifida, which pretty much means that there was an injury to my spinal cord when I was born. And I've been playing adaptive sports my whole life, and adaptive sports have given me an opportunity to practice the life skills that anybody and everybody can get from sports. But I think they're particularly important for adaptive athletes because we often don't have the same opportunities as other people without disabilities. And specifically in wheelchair basketball, at the junior level, it is a male-dominated sport because it is a co-ed sport, because there just aren't as many adaptive athletes. And I know firsthand the experience that this has had on my confidence as a young female wheelchair basketball player. So that's the reasoning behind my camp.
Well, that is fantastic and so great. We'll talk more about it in a minute. We want to give Rishan a chance to talk a little bit about your program. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so I started Alley Oop Kids in 2014, so I was 8 years old. I started it with my brother, who was 11 at the time. And since then, he's now in college, and so I think around freshman year of high school, I sort of had an opportunity to take over Alley Oop and really make it my own. And so what I decided to do was start lending lockers, which is essentially a program that installs lockers full of sports equipment, footballs, basketballs, baseballs, whatever the school or organization needs. And they're installed at schools and organizations nationwide and globally as well that need them. So, yeah.
And are you looking for underserved communities? Is that
for sure?
And how do you identify those?
So initially, my aunt works at the Aspire organization, which is a charter school organization in the Bay Area, and so that really kind of found us the first schools to work with initially, which is schools that really needed the equipment. And from there, now we get requests from organizations in Africa that need sports equipment, or organizations in different areas that are underserved that need it. So it's kind of coming back to us now, and we're getting requests that way.
And how many would you say you've been able to provide over the last few years?
So it's 230 lockers globally now, which is awesome. A bunch of them are in India, which is really cool, which is providing sports equipment access to over 175,000 kids, which is really, really cool.
That's amazing. Do you get to travel to any of these places and deliver it? Yeah. Absolutely. My little aside was, you get to travel and deliver yourself and get to fun trips?
I'm planning on it. Hopefully, definitely go to India and do that. That'd be really awesome.
I think you need to talk to the guy in charge, which I think is you. Yeah. Going back to what you're doing, obviously for you, this is very personal.
Yep.
Can you tell us how challenging, daunting it is for someone with a disability or who would be in adaptive sports to even enter that. What your experience obviously is basketball, but I think it's so important. You've got leaders from around the country and probably internationally here as well to tell them how hard it is, how difficult it is, the challenges, and how maybe we are not meeting the moment as leaders in our communities.
That's a good question. Me personally, I've been doing adaptive sports for as long as I can remember. So I personally don't remember the challenges that maybe went along with it, but I think a big part of it is exposure, because we hear a lot about people with disabilities who feel like they don't have access, they wish they had access, and they do. They just often don't know about it. So I think awareness is the biggest aspect.
And could you tell us how you actually started? What's your first memory of being involved in sports?
Yeah, so I started with the Disabled Athletes Sports Association when I was 3. I started adaptive swimming. I think the rule was that you were supposed to be 4, but I was cute, so they let me start when I was 3. So that was my first adaptive sport with DASA, and then I started doing adaptive track when I was 7, basketball when I was 9, and then outside of DASA, I started doing adaptive CrossFit when I was 9.
That's fantastic, my goodness. And do you still swim?
No, I don't swim right now, but I also do adaptive track for my high school and CrossFit.
Fantastic. And do you specialize in, say, in track? Is there a specialty that you have?
The mile and the 2 mile are my favorites.
Oh, that's pretty amazing.
I'm a distance girl.
And let's I know you basketball, we want to get back to that, but because you're doing track and field, how is that for you there? In other words, what are the challenges? Are we reaching all the kids, girls and boys, that we can be reaching? I know you're in St. Louis and you're seeing this there, but what's your assessment of how that's going with track and field, which would seem to be because it can kind of reach a lot of people, right? I'm just curious how that's going.
Yeah, that's a good question. At my school, it's me and one other, my best friend, who's also an adaptive athlete, and we're the only 2 girls with disabilities at my school, so I think track, we're doing a good job at my school, so that's my knowledge of that.
Let's go back to basketball for a second.
Let's go back.
I've just asked Deanna about Caitlin Clark, and this is a great time for girls and women in basketball, and obviously the guys too, of course. We don't want to forget the guys, but because you mentioned, I thought that was so compelling, the idea of, as you said here too, and on the film, that it is just girls. We're missing girls. We're not giving girls the opportunity. Do you think because of the national interest in Caitlin Clark, the conversations about Caitlin and Angel Reese and so many others, the great TV ratings, do you feel that will reach families who are dealing with athletes who have young children who would need to be adaptive athletes and maybe encourage them?
Yeah, I think it could, because I think seeing that story could make those families realize maybe my kid can do that. Just because they have a disability, they just do it differently, but it doesn't mean they can't do it at all.
Right. And are you a Caitlin Clark fan?
I know who she is.
Oh, I get it. Well, you're too busy, saving the world and starting and helping kids to know she's a great basketball player.
I'm a fan.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Right. You've heard of it. No, it's totally great because you're doing very important things. Can you describe what for those who haven't seen it, and I've covered Olympics and Paralympic basketball, but for those who haven't seen it, what is the game like, for adaptive basketball?
Pretty much just basketball and wheelchairs. We have pretty much the same rules. People are always surprised to find out we shoot at the same 10-foot hoop as everybody other non-adaptive athletes. So pretty much just basketball and wheelchairs, and we learn how to adapt.
And how fun is it?
It's so much fun. I love it so much.
What's been your best game that you've played?
We had nationals in March, and our championship game, we've won the National Invitational Tournament the past 2 years, and this past championship game was my best.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And you weren't the leading scorer or anything, were you?
Nope, I think I got 16 points, and I think that's the most points I've had in a game in my career.
That sounds like a lot to me. Congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
wonderful. That's wonderful. And Rishan, your sports background, what sports have you played and what drew you to sports as a youngster yourself?
Yeah, so my brother always played basketball, so being a little brother, I just kind of followed him. And my dad is obsessed with basketball and Steph Curry, so I always played basketball growing up from a very young age. Club basketball, I also played club baseball all the way through middle school, and so yeah, I just fell in love with sports ever since kindergarten or first grade, whenever it was. I really used to be like super shy. I remember my mom came in to drop off snacks in kindergarten and then left, and I started crying one time. Such a mama's boy. But then I think a couple of years later, as I got better at basketball and it became more of a part of my identity, I really started to flourish socially too. And it really gave me this confidence that was really special, and that's why sports are so special to me.
Do you still play?
I still play, but track is my main sport now. A little too short for basketball, so I had to pivot. So yeah, track is my main sport.
And what do you run? It's track, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to field, right? Yeah, yes,
Track.
field. A whole nother set of skills. What are your specialties in track?
I'm a sprinter, unlike her. I'm a 100, 200 meter, and 400 meter too.
And what's your best performance recently, or what?
Our season just ended, so we had a kind of like a regional meet, and I did pretty well. 11.6 in the 100. If any of you track fans out there, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Sign them up. We're spending a lot of time talking about, obviously we're talking sports, and we're talking the value of sports. And we have two wonderful young future leaders now, but also future leaders for not just in sports, but in our country. I mean, sports is that launching pad in many ways to success in business, politics, you name it, right? How are we doing as a nation, do you think, from your perspective, in terms of how we're, and one of the things that Tom Ferry, who, we've known each other for a long time, for 40 years, since the Miami Herald days, he has been concerned about how we are bringing kids to sports. Are we hitting kids with too much, right? The old sports with the fire hose, in their face kind of thing. How are we doing from your perspective, be it your projects or just your more global view of your experience and what you think we need to do better, or how we're doing? Rishan?
Yeah, I think that there's a big kind of problem with the access to sports for kids, and that's kind of what I'm focusing on with the equipment aspect of that. But I think there's a whole aspect of do kids have the space to play? Do kids have people to play with? Do they have coaching? And then do they have equipment? I think those are kind of the four main things. And I think we're doing all right with it, but I certainly think there's room for improvement. I think there's so many underserved kids who don't have the proper access to equipment, and because of that, they just stop playing. And that can't happen. That's something that we definitely need to change.
And how about you?
I think in wheelchair basketball, where we can grow is instilling confidence in the girls, because I can't remember the amount of times that I've been put in positions to get my stronger, taller, faster boy teammates their perfect shot, and that really impacted my confidence, not just as a player, but as a person. So I think instilling confidence in the young females is where we can grow the most.
Which certainly has been a kind of the foundation in many ways for the entire women's sports conversation, a girls' sports conversation. When you're starting this, how many years or how long have you been actually doing your camp?
So this is the first year I'm ever doing it. August 3rd will be the first inaugural camp. I'm so excited.
That's fantastic. Now, do you already have girls signed up?
I'm sending out flyers right now as we speak. I'm working with the program manager over at DASA, and we're getting the girls.
And will it just be St. Louis area?
It will be just the St. Louis area this year.
Now, if someone in the audience knows of a potential girl who might be interested, but she lives in another state or could she potentially sign up?
Send them my way if she wants to come, certainly.
Right, we just get them there, drive them, whatever, to get them there. Yeah, because it sounds like this kind of program would be something that could potentially draw from around the Midwest.
Yeah.
And that sounds. What are your hopes for this year? Like, do you have any dream of like how many girls might show up, or how it might go?
I'm hoping 10 to 15 this year. I'm just really hoping, since it's my first year, the girls come out of it with more confidence in themselves and they take it back to the program.
That's great. And any publicity or media coverage yet, or is that going to come hopefully soon?
That will hopefully come soon.
Gosh, if you only knew a journalist, might have to work on that. We'll talk afterwards, all right?
Sounds good.
Because it does sound like a fantastic, fantastic program. What are your hopes, Rishan, for the future? I mean, as you said, you're going outside the country, you're reaching kids who have never probably, they must open the box and they must just be like in heaven, right, to see what they have. What more do you want to do? How much bigger can your program and your dreams go?
Yeah, well, I definitely want to just continue what I'm doing right now first, getting letting lockers out, fulfilling requests from everywhere around the world. But I also want to empower other youth to do what I'm doing, and I think that's really the way that it can kind of spiral into something a lot bigger than 230 lockers. And so the way I would imagine doing that is just by spreading the word and spreading awareness of, hey, this many kids, they don't have access to the right equipment. And I think with that knowledge, a lot of the kids, even in my own school, have come up to me like, oh, I didn't know that these kids didn't have access. What can I do? I have these old footballs in my house. Do you think you can take them? And a lot of stuff like that. So I think just empowering other people is my way of doing that.
And the question I asked to Josie, have you received media coverage? Has there been, local coverage or TV coverage of anything that you're doing?
Yeah, there's definitely been a lot of coverage over the last year. I got the Billie Jean King Youth Leadership Award at the ESPYs last year, which was really awesome, and got a lot of publicity, which was really helpful, and made a lot of connections with a lot of big organizations that have really helped us out.
My goodness, you are on your way, that's for sure. It's fantastic. In the last couple of minutes that we have, when you think of sports and the joy that sports can bring, you are definitely changing people's lives. How has sports changed your life? I know we talked a little bit about confidence, but in your closing thoughts, to look into an audience full of leaders and people who want to hear your every word and want to hear what it is that's so great about sports or your involvement in it. Do you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, there's a lot. Like every single day, I'm very grateful for sports because I think it's just brought me so much. But I think the one aspect that I think Josie hit on as well is confidence. I think it's really unique what sports is able to do with confidence. Even if you're not the best player on the team, there's something about sports and being in that environment and that culture that really builds confidence, especially in young individuals. So for me, it's 100% confidence, and I think that's taken me really far off the field as well.
That's fantastic. And Josie?
I already hit on this, but I think adaptive sports have changed the entire course of my life. I have so many life skills that are going to help me be so successful later in my life. I'm looking at collegiate wheelchair basketball. I'm going to go to college because I have the life skills that wheelchair basketball has taught me, like being a student athlete, persistence, commitment, all of these things that have just changed my life as a disabled young woman.
Well, you are both absolutely fantastic. I think we are all better for having heard your stories. I think I can speak for everyone in this room to encourage you to keep it up, to thank you for the example you're showing all of us adults. And we cannot thank you enough. All the best to both of you. Rishan, Josie, thank you so much for being here and for inspiring us.